What is good, YouTube? My name is CJ. This is CJ Knows Tech. And this is a brand new series that I'm gonna call Making YouTube. The tech and tools that I use to create my videos. So the tech today that we're gonna talk about is cameras. Prosumer grade camera, which means is not quite pro, not quite consumer, in between. This is the camera I love. This is the camera that I purchased to do this. You always have the cliche, hey, you don't have to have such and such camera. You can start with your phone, which is true, but just know that quality is important. But you gotta have, you gotta have good content to go with that, obviously. So put a lot of effort into your content, please. But the a6300 has a lot of great features. It's a mirrorless camera, which isn't like a DSLR. It doesn't use a mirror, hint the word mirrorless. It shoots 4K, HD 1080 up to 120 frames per second or 60 frames per second. So when you watch those videos and see that super butter slow motion, that's either shot at 120, which is super slow, or 60 frames per second. So just know that you get that option inside this body. Because when we talk about the cameras, there's the body and then there's the lens. The lens are detachable, they're interchangeable, and the lens is very important. Now, it does not have a flip out screen. So if you're into the vlogging and you need to see yourself, I would probably recommend a 5100. The only downside about that, you got to use on-camera audio, which may not be the best audio. I do not use on-camera audio. I'm just gonna say that right now. So if you hear the audio that I get and you're wondering how I get it, I will explain that in another video. For now, let's stick to the a6300. So you get the 4K, you get the beautiful 1080. It's a mirrorless camera. It's a small form factor. Most DSLRs from Canon or Nikon or so forth. Canon is the main competitor. It's a war between Sony and Canon. Whether you're Sony or whether you're Canon and so forth, and those people go at it and they clash. It's just like Apple and Samsung. There's always diehard fans for brands and so forth and all that. Right now, I like what Sony offered. I see the argument of color science and so forth, flip out screens and everything with Canon. I get it. But like for what I wanted and what I wanted to be into, the a6300 with Sony, which now the a6500 is that next step up, the model after the a6300, which has in-body stabilization. If you don't know what that is, basically it helps your shot while you're holding it in handheld be a lot more stable. You don't want it to be too shaky, you know what I mean? Trust me, I don't have that on my a6300 and I'm quite jealous about that. Yeah. There's other ways you can stabilize, like right here, tripod I'm using. If you need to move around, get around, you need to stabilize it, gimbal. I have a glide cam, and that thing has a huge learning curve. I'm looking to get an electronic gimbal, so I'll be talking more on that. Back to the camera body. All of those features out of a very small, compact body, which is why the a6300 is like pretty ideal. That's why it's so popular. Small body does a lot. Now this is a crop sensor. I know. I usually be dodging the super technical stuff. We gotta get a little technical when it comes to cameras because a lot of these specs that I'm speaking on, they matter. So it's a crop sensor, meaning there's full frame, which is the big full sensor, and then there's crop, which is the piece of that, and then there's like micro four thirds and so forth. So when we talk about crop sensor, the reason why that's important is because when you start doing lenses, whether it's a 20 millimeter, 30 millimeter and so forth, the crop sensor has an effect on what the real focal length becomes. You might buy a 20 millimeter lens thinking, oh, you got 20 millimeters of focal length, but really in actuality, you'll have a 30 millimeter focal length. You got a 50 millimeter, you would really have a 75 millimeter. So it gets crazy and all that. You gotta do your homework. I'm gonna plant seeds here and there, and hopefully you go and you look it up and you do your research and you understand what I'm talking about. I'll do a video later where I get more in depth in that, and I wanna share and help people out there get to know the cameras that they have. And I'm gonna talk about another one that's around in my possession, which is the a5100. Let me grab that. So I mentioned this a5100 earlier. Boom, you can see yourself. Oh, wait. In comparison to those big DSLRs you see people carrying, which there's nothing wrong with that. Ergonomically, it's kind of better. You look at it in my hand, like there's nothing for my pinky. The a6300 is bigger than this. It's a bigger body. A6500, they increased the handle due to a lot of people talking about that. The bigger like mirrorless setups, which are the full frame, which is like the A7S and the A7R, which I'm hoping this year to get one of those to get into that. But that's another thing. They give you so much access and quality to get such a big camera quality and such a small body frame. To me, is like really worth it. Right now, I'm experimenting with being more professional with it, and I'm doing like S-Log and so forth. This is my third time shooting this, experimenting and learning with S-Log. I didn't expose properly on the first one. Exposure, that's another thing you gotta learn about when you're dealing with cameras and so forth. I'm gonna drop these seeds, I'm planting them in your mind. Hopefully you research and you water these seeds and they grow, and then you have the knowledge. I'm gonna talk a little bit about lenses. Like, the body is what you get for the features and the capabilities. The lenses is what you get for the picture and quality and sharpness. That's another word. Now, sharpness is how crisp and clean your footage is. You want sharp, beautiful, crisp footage. Certain lenses are sharper than others. Understanding like f-stops, aperture, write that down. Right here. Now, a very wide aperture is how you get the blurry backgrounds. And that's what you typically want. It blurs out the background and kind of puts the focus right here. The way you get that is wide apertures. And you say wide and fast, you see the little F and you see a number next to that. The lower that number is, the wider the lens, the more light and the blurrier the background. The lens I'm using right now is a Sigma 18 to 35 millimeter f1.8. Hence the f1.8. I also have the Sigma 30 millimeter f1.4, hence the F number, 1.4. And that means you don't need as much light to light your subject. Another thing, autofocus, write that down. The autofocus on the Sonys is pretty good. I hear that Canon's autofocus is better. Very well may be, but honestly, Sony's autofocus is really good. Now, what is autofocus? I don't have autofocus on now. I'm in manual focus. Write that down too, manual focus. I'm gonna explain that first because that's quick and easy. I basically set where I want it to focus at. So right here, not in focus. Here, it's in focus because my focal length is right here to my face because I want my face always to be in focus during this entire video. So autofocus is the camera automatically picks where to focus. So like if I'm holding this up and I put this out, the camera will focus on it. And then when I pull it down, it would try to find me and then focus back on me. You know, I might pull this down and it might be a while before it actually focuses in on my face. But with me doing manual, no matter what, my face is always in focus. So I like shooting manual in this type of situation. Professional people, they only shoot in manual. So like movies and so forth and all that, it's all manual focus, it's not auto. If I do want to use autofocus, I know that Sony has a great autofocus system. Look it up. It's like crazy points all over this thing that this thing is watching, for all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I know. Now this 18 and 35 millimeter Sigma, if you search the footage from that, you'll see a lot of beautiful shots with this lens. It's very sharp. This is what you call a kit lens. This typically comes with the A series Sony cameras, so the A5100, 6300, 6500. Now you can buy them without a lens and then purchase the lens that you want. But the kit lens is a good value lens, 16 millimeters to 50 millimeters at an f-stop of 3.5 to 5.6. Prime, that's another word, prime lens, my 30 millimeter, is a f1.4. Now prime lens, let me just throw that in really quick. A prime lens is a lens that doesn't zoom. Literally whatever length it's at, that's what it is. So if you need to get closer to your subject, you have to physically move the camera closer. If you need to get further away, you have to step back. You can't just hit the zoom and I know, it's a lot. Trust me, it's a lot me saying all this stuff. I think the kit lens is a good place to start. And then as I learned more and starting to get a feel for what look I was looking for and wanted, like the look I want with my screen, all right, I found out what lenses I wanted, which was not too big, and I could get around, move around with this, and I love this thing. So this one is a f1.4, remember that, allows a lot of light in. Caveat with that, when you're outside and it's bright blazing sun, you're gonna look in your camera and it's just gonna look overexposed, white, and crazy. Now you need an ND filter. What the heck is an ND filter? So an ND filter is basically like a shade for your lens. So you see how you can see through this right now? And as I turn it, it gets darker. This is a variable ND filter, which means it's a bunch of ND filters in one. Basically, I get to cut down the light. So if it's too much light, I just turn this to get a good clear picture. So yeah, that's my camera. I highly recommend these Sony A series. Then you're not getting point and shoot costs. You're gonna pay a little something for these, but the quality, which is something I'm all about, is there. And that's why I shoot 4K. No, nobody's watching in 4K. I know. Shooting in 4K, when I go down to 1080, if I down res, I'm gonna get like beautiful, crisp butter footage. There's a lot of caveats. It's big files. It's hard on the computer. That's why I ended up having to build a custom PC just to handle 4K editing. There's steps, there's levels to it. So you got to figure out where you fit in doing YouTube. If you're looking into getting into doing this or something similar or videography, like I highly recommend you do your research, check out these different cameras. In this market of like the camera that I'm talking about, the Sony a6300, there's the a6500, there's also the Panasonic GH4 and GH5, and then there's the Canon offerings, you know, 80D, 70D, and things like that. And some people even do like the Rebels, like the T6Is. These are all kind of in the same price range, and these are all like the different cameras I was looking at. The video quality I've seen out of the GH5 is really nice, like 4K. I think they got 4K at 60 frames per second, which I'm kind of jealous about that. can't wait till Sony gets that. But like I said, you know, I'm looking to step up to eventually getting full frame. Like the A7R III is looking real nice. That price tag. And then the A7S III is coming soon, which is Sony's full frame video focused camera. That is a rundown on my camera, the camera that I use. There's more to it. There's the camera accessories. I have a monitor I use, tripod, and the lights, what microphone I'm using, and so forth. There's different steps, there's different stages to this, and you don't have to start here. Depending on how far you're trying to go and the quality you're trying to get to, you can start where you are and then eventually build up to this. But I'm just gonna show you the stuff that I have and how I get my quality. And I'm also gonna drop some tips in this series, motivation, and how I do what I do. And smash that like button, hit that sub button. My name is CJ, this is CJ Knows Tech. This is my brand new series making YouTube, and this one is What Camera Do I Use? Sony a6300. So comment down below, let me know what camera you're looking at, what lenses you're looking at. If you have any questions about my camera, questions about the lenses I use, or if you have any questions in general as far as making YouTube or that pertains to me and how I make my videos. I'm looking to get into talking about my custom PC at some point, my lights, my sound, tripod, monitors, external monitors, and even like my process and my editing process and my color grading and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm getting into color grading. That's another thing you need to learn about too. That's why I'm shooting this in S-Log. And I took a risk again because if this doesn't come out right, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm dead serious, yo. I lost 2 shoots already. I'm talking about hours of work just gone. Everything doesn't make it, you know what I mean? You see the finished, beautiful product, but you don't see the hard work, pain that goes into this. I'm done. I'm sorry.